G'day cheeky dogs, my name's Margie and I'm an Australian currently living in America. Today's video is going to be a Bluey Theory video about how the Blueyverse dogs evolved. I previously made a theory about whether or not the Blueyverse is a post-apocalyptic world or if it is just a parallel universe. So this is based off the idea that it is a parallel universe, but that they did still kind of evolve the same way that humans evolved. But before I go into it and explain how I think the dogs actually evolved from monkeys and how that works with the idea of flat pack, make sure that you've hit that subscribe button down below as well as that bell for notifications so that you know whenever I release any new Bluey Theory videos. And if you want to see any more different types of theory deep dives, let me know in the comment section down below any other theories you'd like me to look into. With that being said though, let's just go straight into this and how I think dogs in the Blueyverse evolved from tiny little sea animals. And that's where we're going to start, is from the episode Flat Pack, where we see Bluey and Bingo basically map out the idea of evolution in what they believe is their world, or the Blueyverse. We see it go from fish to frogs, or frog dogs, then into lizards, then dinosaurs, then birds, and then fairy snow little creatures, and then monkeys, then cave dogs, and then using tools, and eventually ending up with space travel. So of course here we have the issue of them going from fairy animals in the snow to monkeys to cave dogs. Whereas in our universe, it's monkeys into cavemen. And dogs don't really evolve from monkeys, so how would that even work? Why are monkeys even in on this mix? I have some ideas, but I do want to give credit to two people on Reddit, Clever Name Inventor and Color Code the Artist as well, because they came up with a lot of the really cool ideas for this theory as well. So definitely kudos to you guys. Now, the only monkeys we know of in the Blueyverse is Chutney Chimp and Chunky Chimp. Yes, they are two different people, two different characters, but we're going to focus on Chunky Chimp actually, and the Chunky Chimp movie, and what that might have to do with the idea of evolution in the Blueyverse. So in our world, a lot of time, animal movies usually show animals portraying similar biological behaviors or behaviors we would see in the real world.
Where nothing comes easy.
Hey, Scram, get your own fish.
Careful, pup.
So then it stands to fact that maybe the behaviors we see of the monkeys in Chunky Chimp, or chimps, actually also behave the same way that monkeys do in the Blueyverse as well. Perhaps they are also not very inquisitive, that they don't like to go down from their trees, that they're not interested basically in the groundlands.
The groundlands aren't for chimps. Tree World is where we belong. Why can't you just be like the rest of us? Why do you have to be so different?
I mean, it's not just movies, it's also TV shows like, for example, Bluey, where they also act like dogs sometimes with the barking and tail wagging.
Ow!
You get what I'm saying. So perhaps in the Blueyverse, monkeys never left the trees. They never evolved into cavemen or Neanderthals. They just stayed up in their trees instead. And perhaps wolves then became the main dominant land creature. I mean, maybe that was even why the monkeys didn't come down in the first place, was because they were scared of the wolves. Now, this means that wolves would have had to have been forced to survive by themselves without humans helping them in any way. So lone wolves, weak wolves, they would have had to basically go through the idea of survival of the fittest. They would have had to have evolved to survive and continue on as a species. Now, this idea of survival of the fittest pushes the evolution of their brain and the idea of using tools as well. And this is where the monkeys come into their evolution timeline, as we saw in Flat Pack. Monkeys have thumbs. They have opposable thumbs just like humans, but in the Blueyverse, the dogs still have like the four kind of claw hands. So perhaps though, they realized that they needed a way to be able to grip and grab things because they don't have humans to help them. But maybe they saw the monkeys in the trees using their opposable thumbs and fingers to grip and grab things, and that pushed their brain evolution into copying and mimicking that. And that's how they started to get opposable claws instead. They needed to be more dexterous and be able to easily grab things. So I think that this might explain where the monkeys come into it and the idea of how the Blueyverse dogs started to use their hands or forelegs more. But then how did they start to walk upright? So this again, it comes into the fact that they didn't have humans around anymore to throw food down towards them. Instead, they had to use their hind legs a lot more to push themselves up, to reach up and grab food from different sources, which means that their legs would have been more muscular. They would have started to walk more upright so that they could reach things higher and higher, and eventually just cause the evolution of them walking. Similar to how eventually Apes had to go from walking down on the ground to walking upright as well. But then how did we get different breeds in the Blueyverse and not just have the wolf into dog breed basically? I think it's got honestly a lot to do with how we have different races as human beings as well. Just like humans, the wolves would have eventually evolved and migrated into different parts of the world, which means that they would have had to evolve to those different parts of the world as well, and thus created different races or different breeds. But then what about the more specific man-made breeds of dogs that we have, like bulldogs, Pomeranians, and dachshunds? Well, it is possible that it is from intermarrying and interbreeding, just like it is in real life and how we create those specific breeds in real life. So for example, in our real world history, a lot of royal families did a lot of intermarrying. And because of that, there were very specific physical traits that started to appear. For example, the Habsburg jaw is probably one of the most famous physical changes and the most noticeable ones. So perhaps in the Blueyverse, this also happened. Perhaps specific breeds were created by intermarrying within royal families, or maybe even just regular families as well, because they wanted specific traits. I mean, for example, in the real world, we bred dachshunds so that they would have a long tube body, so they'd be better at hunting. We bred other dogs so that they'd be cute and smaller, and maybe the Blueyverse did the exact same thing. Maybe dachshunds in the Blueyverse were hunters and they needed to be better at hunting, and so they intermarried to create a better hunting body. I mean, even in real life here in history, we have had different times where it was considered to be thin was more beautiful, fat was more beautiful, to have tan skin, to have really light pale skin. So maybe in the Blueyverse that was the same thing as well, but just a lot more physical features were bred by intermarrying into each other's families. And then over time you get more different colors and different types of breeds just appearing naturally all over the world. Now continuing on with the evolution, of course, is then tools specifically that we also see in Flatpack, that they get the tool and that helps them evolve. Same thing in the Blueyverse, they get the tools, they evolve into a more technological society, as we see in the Bluey world now with tablets and iPhones and cars and planes. In Sleepy Time as well, we saw that there was a flag on the moon, so that means of course that they have eventually evolved into understanding space travel, and they have gone out into space as well, just like we did in the real world. But perhaps the Blueyverse is even more evolved than ours. And in Flatpack, we see Bluey saying goodbye to her daughter Bingo as she travels all over space. And maybe that exists in the Blueyverse. Maybe space travel is a real option and they can go into space and live on other planets. But what do you guys think? Do you think that that's the evolutionary timeline of the Blueyverse, and that's how they went from the sea creatures into fully upright anthropomorphic dogs? Let me know in the comment section down below how much you believe this theory, or if you have any other theories about this as well that you'd like to share with everyone. Again, don't forget to hit that like button down below if you enjoyed this video, as well as that subscribe button and bell for notifications. I have picked out a few other videos that maybe you cheeky dogs would like to watch, and I will see you all in another video. Mwah! Bye!